Hello, Craig. Welcome to Chimerish FM.
Hey.
Hi.
This is kind of weird to listen to my voice so much.
Intimately.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like we're sitting quite far apart, but I'm like right in your ears.
Yeah, I mean, I have heard my own voice before, but,
Yeah.
you know, like I don't go out of my way to listen to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Craig and I have been meaning to catch up, to come on the podcast for ages. Craig, who are you?
That's a good question. I guess I'm one of those people that is a writer, but it's not like a working writer.
Mm.
You know, like I've got...
A writer in training.
I guess sort of a writer in training, or one of those... I'm a filmmaker who hasn't made a film in 5 years sort of people, which is kind of lame. But, you know, that's where I'm at. But I'm also a lot of other... focus can be a problem, you know.
All right.
When you do a lot of things...
Lots of little things, yeah.
Lots of little things, lots of half-done things.
I know what that's like. I guess I met you through film circles in Perth, I think.
Yeah.
So you still keep in touch with the film networks you've been focusing on writing for the past few years?
Yeah, but I've got, obviously, friends are making things, and sometimes I help them out and do stuff.
Yeah.
Whether that's just...
like, oh, let's get Craig on, see what he's up to.
Yeah, sometimes it's like taping cables down, or sometimes it's doing camera-y stuff, but...
Yeah. And you... before we started the podcast, we just went on a bit of tangent. You were talking about how you wanted to... you had a reason to record a guitar. Does that mean you do music as well?
Yeah, I'm not doing it very much, but I just kind of... It's sort of like a hobby just to play. I used to try and write more songs, but I haven't done that for a while.
My one memory of you that sticks in my mind is I think you're from Moore River. Is
sort
that right?
of, yeah. Like I went to school in a town on the Moore River called Mora.
Oh, right, Mora. That's right.
Yeah. But I grew up on a farm like...
Moore River's not a location, it's Mora.
Yeah, I grew up on a farm like 40 k's south of Mora.
Okay, and then, what kind of farm?
My parents had cows and sheep when we were little, and then they got rid of sheep, and then...
For world context, we're right now in Leadville in Perth, the capital of Western Australia. And how far away is Mora and the farm from Perth?
So it's like 2 hours to Mora, or an hour and a half to my parents' farm.
Okay. So it's on the main drag? Or do you have to go off the beaten road a bit?
It's more or less on the main drag.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not on the Great Northern Highway, but it's on one of the main roads that are off the Great Northern Highway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go left at Bindoon. And then,
so it's wheat and sheep?
Not so much wheat, but it's that kind of area.
All right. So you just did sheep?
Cows also.
All right. Okay.
And like oats for hay, that kind of stuff.
Okay. And what do you do with the cows?
Sell them.
Cows?
Meat cows, yeah.
Okay.
Sell them so people can eat them.
Cows,
yeah.
How long were you living there for? Did you live there whole adolescent life?
Whole everything life. Like my parents moved there from like way up north when I was a baby, and I had
What's way up north?
They used to run a cattle station.
Oh, really?
Out in the desert, like near Walloona.
Okay, so where were you born?
I was born in Geraldton.
Okay.
Which is
the main hub out there.
Sort of. Probably one of the main ones. That's like 4 hours away from Perth, I guess.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it is. It's quite a track up the north.
It must be a bit more than that. It must be 4 to 5, because it takes about 3 hours from our farm to get there.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, I was born there, and then...
But they were living on the ranch in Walloona, and they just came in.
Yeah, because my mum's from there originally. Like, that's where her family was.
All right. They're from Gero.
Yeah, they're from Gero.
Yeah, okay.
Geraldton. People make fun of me because I say Geraldton, but that's how people in Geraldton say Geraldton.
How would I say it?
I don't know. Geraldton, maybe?
Geraldton? Okay.
Because it's a D and a T.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Okay.
But yeah, then they moved to that. They bought the farm, and we moved there when I had my first birthday.
Okay.
And I lived there until I finished high school. So like I left at 18 to go to uni.
So how long were you in Walloona for?
My dad was there forever because that's where he grew up.
Okay.
On a different station though. And I have an older brother and sister, and they were born, and then they lived there until obviously they were 5. So I don't know. Ever since my parents got married, they
You don't
had that
remember
farm.
Wollongong at all?
Well, no, I don't remember it at all because I was a baby.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Mora's hometown for you?
Yeah, more or less. Although I don't like to admit that because it's not a great place to be from.
Okay. The only reason I know it and why I was referring to is Moore River because they had the Moore River floods. It was a big flood.
Yeah,
I remember being big on the news. Were you involved in that?
Yeah, so it happened twice in 1 year, or maybe it was 1999 and then 2000, but maybe it was twice in 1 year. The first one was during school holidays, so that wasn't very fun. Like we were outside of town, didn't really affect us. It was just our friend's house got flooded. And then the second time it happened, it wasn't as bad, but we were at school, and like in primary school, so maybe like year 4 or 5, so like 10 years old or something. And we didn't no one told us what was happening. We were just kids, right? We didn't know what was happening. And then all the parents of like the town kids started coming into the class and like picking their kids up and being like, oh, we're going to go stay with your auntie in Perth.
Yeah.
And like, oh, that was weird. And then like, it just kept happening. But no one was telling us what was going on.
Okay.
I mean, it was raining a lot, but, we didn't know. And then finally, we kind of figured it out. Or someone told us or something, I don't know. And we had to, get the school bus and go home, drive through the water.
Back to the farm?
Back to the farm, yeah.
All right, because the school was going to flood?
Well, yeah, the whole town was flooding.
All right, yeah.
But it didn't flood that bad.
Yeah, okay.
But enough so that they wanted to evacuate the school.
All right, so your farm wasn't affected?
I mean, it was very wet. But
yeah, okay.
And my parents' house...
You didn't have to evacuate the house?
No. Our house is up on like a giant hill, so
okay,
it wasn't going to flood up there.
Designed with floods in mind.
Yeah, I think that the people who built it just wanted the view.
Oh, okay.
It's pretty
Comes in
view.
handy. You get a view and you don't have to worry about floods, but then you have to ride up the hill.
You do. Like, it's hard as a kid with a bike to and from the bus stop. That's not fun.
Did you ride down, lock your bike up at the bus stop and then ride back up?
Yeah.
You probably didn't lock it.
You didn't have to lock it.
In the country, no.
But what was good is when we got older, we would just drive a little car down there and just leave the car down the end of the driveway,
Okay. Yeah.
get off the bus, get in the car, drive up.
All right.
Yeah.
Not street legal car?
Most of the time they weren't licensed. They were just farm cars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you never thought about taking on the farm,
No.
inheriting it? Did you have that option?
I probably could have if I'd wanted it, but
Are any of your siblings doing that?
not exactly. My brother works for a mining company on a mine site, and my sister is a vet nurse / country and western singer.
All right.
But she's on the farm and she works in Mora, so she maybe one day would take it over if she wanted to. Like, she'd be the most likely because she is into the country life,
Yeah. But yeah, the rest of your siblings are off out of town.
Yeah. My brother, mostly lives in Perth, but he works in the country, but he's kind of a drive-in, drive-out mining worker.
Yeah. My dad's side of the family had a farm in Corrigan and they just sold it this year. And because no one who was eligible to inherit wanted to take it on. And it's kind of like the weather, the global warming is just, you can't get a consistent crop every year. So every year you're stressed that you only get a good crop like once every 4 years. So you have to ration that out over 4 years. And if that good crop doesn't come in 4 years, you're on the verge of bankruptcy all the time.
Yeah, and that's the problem. And also, it costs so much to put in a crop these days as well.
Yeah.
It's fertilizer and pesticides and insects. Everything is it's crazy.
And
then you have to have. It might be a bad year, so you should have crop insurance in case the crop doesn't work.
Yeah.
And so that's another cost.
Yeah.
And then.
So your parents are still coping? They're still getting on with it?
They're still coping. They kind of do a lot of other stuff as well.
All right. So they're doing I think my family ended up making more money from the sheep side of the business because the crops just weren't consistent.
Yeah.
Rather, you could, even a bad year, you can buy some feed to keep the sheep alive when there's no actual feed self-sowing feed on the ground.
Yeah, that's right. My parents probably do more from cattle and selling hay. Selling hay is okay, but cattle and stuff like that.
Did you have to work on the farm?
Yeah, you have to do that. You don't really get out of it. I mean, you can try. You can like pretend you're still asleep when they come in and say, you need to come help us do this thing.
Yeah.
But eventually they will come and drag you out and you have to do stuff.
Yeah, that was funny. Like my, because I would go out and spend all my school holidays on the farm, and we're like so excited. Yeah, we get to work on the farm and be out with my cousins who actually live there. We're just like, oh, I hate it when you guys come up because it's like this is our holiday, so we want it to not have to get up and do this stuff. So it never took your fancy though.
No, not really. I mean, like I like the kind of normal cliched stuff, like the clean air and like it's a nice view and stuff like that. But and sometimes the isolation is good. Like if you want to have quiet time with nature or clear your head or whatever, that's it's really good. But
do you still go up there often just to chill out?
Yeah, not as often as
in the city?
Not as often as you probably should go and visit your parents, but yeah, we go up there a bit.
You came back to do uni. Like, what were you doing?
I did film and script writing in uni.
Okay, so you were getting into film straight away. So were you making films in Mora or?
No, I actually, when I first was going to uni, just coming out of year 12 was like a drama kid, so I thought I was going to do more of a playwriting type course. At that time, ECU had a major. It was still like a Bachelor of Communications, but it had like a screenwriting component and a playwriting component. And I was like, oh, that sounds like what I want to do. Mm-hmm. But then when I got there, I got to like the orientation whatnot, where you're supposed to choose your electives to pick where your major's going to go. Mm-hmm. They discontinued that major because not enough people were doing it or something. Okay. So the only one really there was a script writing major instead, so I went with that. Mm-hmm. So my playwriting ambitions ended up going towards screenwriting instead. Okay. And then film obviously just went along with that as a second major. So I wasn't really making films. I had done like little stuff at school, but not much, and little post-it note animation, but nothing like actual cameras and whatnot.
So do you still think about playwriting?
Yeah, I have tried, and it's interesting because it feels like it should be.
And that was your original intention, or that was just sort of took your interest?
Just took my interest
by the time you had to choose a major.
It just took my interest coming out of school because I had been kind of involved with it. I guess I'd been in with drama, doing plays, so. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to do something creative. And I thought I was a good writer, so I liked the idea of that more than like journalism or something. Like a lot of, creative kids come out of school and be like, I'm going to be a journalist or whatnot.
So when you moved to the city to study, and so did you go straight into uni? Yeah, straight into uni. And so where you found a place to live? And
I was actually really lucky. Like I lived with my auntie for a bit, like for the first semester of uni, which was good and bad. It was kind of good because it was just like living at home and I got taken care of. But it was also bad because it was just like living at home and I got taken care of. Yeah. Like you didn't have to think that much. And so I wasn't that social or anything. And none of my friends had moved to Perth, like none of my high school friends really. I think I had...
So that would have been big transition.
Yeah.
Because I've never left the leader.
Kind of was, but like at the same time it was sort of easing into it by staying with my auntie for a bit. And then my brother bought a house in Belmont, and so I went and I lived with him. And then my cousins who were going to uni came and lived there as well, so we had kind of like a uni student share house kind of a thing for like a lot of years.
Yeah. So what was it like becoming a city kid after being a country kid all that time?
It wasn't that hard really. I mean,
you have a completely just different perspective because like...
Yeah, I guess. It took me a bit to
Because
learn.
This is like the city to you rather than people in Perth are like, oh, Melbourne's like the city to us. That's the big city, that's the big smoke. But you're coming from living in a small town where everyone sort of knows
I guess that's true. I don't know if I thought about it that much. Like, we used to come to Perth like quite often, like every other weekend for shopping or whatever. So it wasn't that foreign, but I still didn't necessarily know like my way around driving that much. I mean, I had my license since I was 17, so I was driving down here to go do things or meet friends or whatever. But yeah, it was a bit of a learning that part. I think I probably didn't go out very much at first, like even though I was 18, because I didn't have friends in Perth who were 18. Yeah, I didn't go out like really at all. And when I would go out, everyone would be like, "What are you doing?" Or I remember one of the first things I went to a gig by myself just because it seemed interesting and I had no one to go with because none of my friends were in Perth. And this is when I was still staying with my auntie, and my mum called my auntie's house and said, "Oh, where's Craig?" And she said, "Oh, he's gone out to see music at a pub or something." And my mum was like, what do you mean? Where is he? What's he gone? And she's like, "Oh, I'm not sure." And my mum was like, like all worried because I'd gone to a thing.
So you had to did you have to get a job?
I did. I wasn't very good at that. I didn't at first. So my parents helped me with money for a bit, which was good. But also I had worked like the summer before uni, so I had a bit of savings. So between that, I was kind of lazy and I didn't get a job straight away. And then I pretty much got a job like a year later. So I lived off nothing, basically, just anytime I saw my parents, which was every couple of months, I'd be like, "Oh, here's a little bit more money." Yeah. So yeah, second year of uni, I got a job shooting wedding videos. So, which was great because one, it was like learning camera stuff. Yeah. But also, I didn't have to work during the week when I was at uni, and I could work 1 or 2 days on the weekend and make like a good amount of money. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
So did you meet friends mainly through uni or work or?
Yeah, a bit of both. A few friends from uni and like Stevie I met through work, shooting the weddings. And then eventually, like my friends from high school, like moved to Perth to get jobs or whatnot.
Yeah. Now, we don't have to talk too much about this, but the other thing I remember about is you ended up marrying a Mora girl.
Yeah, that's right. So that was kind of sort of by chance. Like we'd both been in other relationships and we'd never kept in touch. We weren't even like friends at school really. Like we knew who each other were and all that stuff. But it's one of those things where like you become friends on Facebook and then someone likes a picture and someone else comments on a status and then you have like some random conversation. And then
were you both living in Perth?
Yeah, we were both living in Perth. Yeah. She had just got back from living in England and was kind of like out being single in Perth again. Yeah. And then I had just like 6 months before broken up with my girlfriend of 3 years. And then we were both out one night.
Was that a Perth girl?
Yeah. But that I met through one of my high school friends. Yeah. Yeah, so we were just both out one night. And we're like, "Oh, I'm out. Oh, I'm out too. Let's meet up." Okay. And then we were just like friends for a bit, and then we were like...
So you knew each other from Mora?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we knew each other.
So it was like, oh, hey, we know each other. Like,
yeah.
How long was that time period between leaving Mora and running into...
I want to say... Okay, so that was... I left high school in 2006, and she left high school 2 years before that, even though she's only a year older than me. And then it was 2011, so it's like 5 years.
Okay.
Well, 6 years probably.
Yeah.
Since she left school a year early. Or a year before me.
But you had, between that gap period, did you ever have anything to do with it other than being Facebook friends?
No. And then for most of that time, we weren't Facebook friends anyway. So okay. I wasn't even on Facebook until I was finally peer pressured to, like halfway through 2010.
Okay, yeah.
Mostly because friends at uni would be like organising events or parties or whatnot, and then only inviting people on Facebook. So I would get back to uni on Monday and be like, "Oh, how was your weekend, everybody?"
I think people have been doing Facebook all wrong, because all these people were like, "Oh, I'm resisting the urge. I'm not going to avoid it," and then eventually they ended up having to get a Facebook account for whatever reason. But I think it'd be better to do the other way. You should have been on it straight away, gone, "Oh yeah, this is kind of cool," and then quit.
Yeah, so
Because now it's just like I don't want to be on there at all, and I pretty much only use it for, business purposes. Like people who don't know how to use email can message me there.
yeah,
Basically, that's what it's. And there's a couple of like groups, especially film networking groups and stuff. You follow or you want to post something on, or
yeah, that stuff's all right. And still, people want to do events on it, or they use it for the group chat, even though there's better group chat things around.
So you're focusing on writing right now. What are you doing? What's sort of your interest? Why are you still want to be a writer? What drives you?
I guess people, like, it's kind of funny. I was thinking about this the other day because, like, a lot of the stuff that I really like to watch is, like, really interesting science fiction or, weird fantasy or whatnot. But I often don't write that kind of stuff. I'm just more interested in, like, how people interact and, like, what they hold back or how they present themselves, stuff like that.
So but you can't think of, can you think of examples of that stuff? Or is that like a void you're trying to fill?
Do you mean like examples like in other films to look
Well,
at?
you say you watch a lot of, the stuff that you watch a lot of, have not interested in writing. Is that because the stuff that you're interested in writing, there's not a lot of, so you can't watch that stuff?
I don't know. I guess I was watching some Black Mirror the other day, and I really like that. It's kind of like a cool show. I mean, it can be quite depressing.
Yeah.
And like, ugh. But I was thinking like, why don't I write stuff like this? Because I love this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It like really makes you think about people and technology and whatnot. But maybe it's because there is examples like that where it's done so well. There's not really a gap there, I guess. And then also, yeah, there is just so much. Like, I finally read some Kurt Vonnegut. I don't know if you've read his books.
No, I know of him, but I don't think I've ever read any stuff.
Some of it's really like weird, out there.
What's pitch it if you were wanting to introduce someone to Kurt Vonnegut?
So, for example, I read Slaughterhouse 5, which... Is that the one? Maybe that's not the right one. I've read a couple and I'm going to get them confused in my head and everyone's going to be like, you're a fucking idiot.
Yeah. People are super passionate about Slaughterhouse 5 because I hear it a million times and I don't know anything about it other than everyone's like, you've got to read Slaughterhouse 5.
That must be the one. I can't remember, but there's like it's a time travel-y thing where there's one guy and he's pops up randomly through time and he's always got predictions because he's kind of like living backwards in time, sort of, so he knows what's going on.
Okay.
And he's setting up all this stuff. And then there's also... It's really hard to explain now. And after not having it that fresh in my mind, I feel like I'm really butchering it. He basically screws with another guy across time and space for his whole life.
All right.
And they end up together on, I want to say Venus, where there's nothing except for these random glowing aliens that don't do anything. And they live in the caves of Diamond. It takes a long time to get to that point, though. And there's a lot of other interesting stuff that happens.
Yeah.
Like there's a Martian army that he raises to fight Earth, but only so that they will lose on purpose to make Earth feel better about itself or something. It's this whole very intricate plot.
Okay. I have a feeling that I will not like this book. This is what I've decided. I hate time travel films where time travel is kind of part of the plot. Like, I like Groundhog Day because it's simple. You're just repeating the same day over there. There's nothing... You can set that up. You don't even have to give me like Groundhog doesn't give you some sci-fi explanation. It just happens.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And so that's a great movie. I don't know, just there's some movies that were involving time travel where there just doesn't seem to be any consequences because I'm sitting there going, either that doesn't make logical sense what they're trying to do with the time travel thing, or it's like, oh, why don't you just go back in time and fix the problem you just created?
Yeah. I'm trying to think of an example like that, but I don't know if I can. I think I've probably watched too much Doctor Who in my life to really have a good understanding of... I feel like that breaks your whole time travel laws, you know? Like, you can't... Yeah. There's no more, like, grandfather paradox or whatnot anymore.
Because you just have to set up all these rules, and the craziest thing was this reminded me of what you were talking about, the Slaughterhouse 5. I went to the Melbourne International Film Festival, and the opening film was the death and life of Otto Bloom or something like that. And it's about a guy who is he's aging backwards in his mind.
But to everybody else, he's normal.
He looks normal, so it's not like what's that movie with Brad Pitt?
Benjamin Button.
It's not like that. It's like Benjamin Button, except it's just in his mind, not in his and not in his body. So he's aging normally, I think, in his body, but in his mind, he's getting younger and younger.
So his experience is that he's moving through time backwards.
Yeah. And the problem with that is everyone is just sitting there trying to make sense of that. And also they're trying to understand his context in every scene, because they have to put it's like reading the alphabet back to front, like going Z, Y, X, W. You just can't do it as easily as you can going A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
Have you read The Once and Future King? It's like a book about Merlin and King Arthur. It's like Merlin raising King Arthur.
No, I have not read that.
It's a really good one. And in that...
Okay.
It's like a classic English kind of kidsish book. In that, Merlin is living backwards through time.
Okay.
And that might be the originator of the idea. I don't know. But the best thing about it, like, it's in a book, so you can kind of... Yeah,
in a book it could probably work.
You can kind of trace it.
You can just... I was looking around at everyone's cinemas, everyone's just going...
I mean, it also makes no sense, because when Arthur finds Merlin's hut in the woods in... whatever, 1600s, I don't know when it's supposed to be. But he's got, like, all stuff from the 20th century that he's collected over the years and taken back in time with him just as he lives.
Okay.
That doesn't really make sense. But what's cool about it is, so Merlin gets younger as Arthur gets older. But when Arthur's young, Merlin will tell, like, oh, can you remind me in 10 years about this thing that's going to happen? Thanks. And then in 10 years, Merlin's forgotten because he's going backwards. And Arthur's like, oh, sorry, I was supposed to remind you about that thing that was going to happen.
Yeah.
Now you're trapped in a cave.
Yeah.
Sorry. And so it was like, it was done really well.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so I'm not against, like, total travel. Like, even my films, like, one of my films, for example, when she's sort of able to go back and meet her mother when her mother is the same age as her through means, but it's nothing... I try to take out all the things. You don't have to sit there and go,
yeah, like,
how is this working? Yeah. Because she's not actually time traveling. She's just kind of like watching her mum on TV. It's kind of like, or maybe meeting her mum through virtual reality kind of thing. It's like something that you can actually imagine happening in this world without inventing some time travel machine.
Yeah.
And worrying about time travel paradoxes. We got on that because we were talking about Kurt Vonnegut. Why were we talking about Kurt Vonnegut? Oh, thinking things you're interested in writing.
Yeah, so I think what I was trying to get to was that there's so much sci-fi fantasy stuff and so much that's probably done way better than I could do it that I haven't quite found the niche for me. So I guess I'm looking smaller just at people and how they interact. Maybe there's a version where that same thing happens, small people story, but in a larger sci-fi context.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So what are you looking to write now? Like, I think you're working on lots of different things. You're not sure what to do, or I think you're writing short films or feature films.
I've got some different, like obviously half done stuff. I've got a feature script that I started like last year, which is like a third of the way through, and I'm enjoying it, but I'm really only slowly chipping away at it.
That's the hardest bit. The second act is like,
yeah,
you can know where the film ends, but you've got to make some tissue that's interesting to read in the middle.
So I have a feature script that it's, like you said, stuck in the second act at the moment. It's kind of a romantic comedy, sort of, but it's kind of also, like playing with the genre a little bit.
Yeah.
It kind of starts off like a stalker kind of movie.
Okay.
Where it's like there's a nerd guy doesn't know how to deal with women, and so his kind of answer to this girl that he really likes but doesn't know how to get in touch with is just to like cyber stalk her, find out everything about her, and then it comes across as a total creep.
Yeah.
Which is
topical.
And then so then it kind of flips when she's terrified, and then she realizes, oh, that's kind of yeah.
He has to prove himself.
Yeah, he's got to prove himself, and
is it who's the main character? Is she the protagonist? Like you see it through her eyes?
It's kind of both. Okay. It's kind of like a double-hander, two-hander? Yeah. Two-hander, that's what you're supposed to say. Yeah, and I like that kind of perspectives change. It lets you kind of do interesting stuff where you can see it from both angles.
Yeah. Yeah, I have this one feature where sort of at the main climax of the third act, like between the second and third act, it switches perspectives. And I know everyone is just like, well, that's against the rules. But that was like what me, as an audience member, I was at that moment was like, wow, I want to see the other perspective now. Everything's out in the open. You want to go and see, well, that's the most interesting story from that point on. It just feels logical to me as a storytelling device.
Yeah, I hate the rules stuff, because like a lot of the time it's only a rule just because there hasn't been no one's done it against the rules a good way or something like that.
Yeah, well, I think that's the problem with film now. Do you listen to the Bret Easton Ellis podcast?
No.
You should check it out. I
feel like now that you tell me that there's a Bret Easton Ellis podcast, I think someone else, maybe you before, has told me that there is.
Yeah.
I probably was supposed to listen to it.
It's interesting. Definitely worth checking out. And he's, he just hates modern film. Everything's terrible, and he wishes everything go back to the early 80s and late 70s where it's all about sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And I think I can predict the next one is going to be about him defending Bertolucci and Marlon Brando in this whole Last Tango in Paris thing.
Right.
And he's going to get heaps of hate for it. And because he's always like on the put art first kind of thing, Why did I bring that up?
Rules in film and something.
We're talking. Oh yeah, basically he's consigned himself to realize that there's no very little, like the risk taking in film is like very minor. Like it's people who have self-funded their films and doing it, like all the interesting creative stuff is happening in TV now.
Yeah, TV, or it's in like experimental arty stuff that it's just on Vimeo or just on YouTube and no one ever sees it or whatever.
Even like, you know, in Breaking Bad, they would have episodes like, I think the one with the fly in the... Have you seen Breaking Bad?
Yeah, I've seen Breaking Bad.
It's the one the fly gets stuck in their drug lab and they spend the whole episode chasing the fly, and it's directed by... I think it was directed by Rian Johnson, who's directing the next Star Wars film.
Oh, right.
But they just let him do what he wanted, and the film doesn't really have anything to do with the actual plot, but it's about... It still tells the story about who these characters are. You know, you get a good sense of who these characters are at this stage of the story by just them chasing a fly. You know, stuff like that you just don't see in film anymore because everyone's so risk averse that you know, you put this film out and no one goes to see it, rather than you put something up on Netflix and people just see, oh, what's this, and they click the button and they start watching it.
It's a good segue into, are you keeping up with the recent films of Kevin Smith?
I saw Tusk. I haven't seen the...
Yeah, I haven't seen Yoga Hoses either, but I've seen Tusk. And that's... so he's going against that kind of grain. Because, I mean, he's got a fan base of people that want to see Jay and Silent Bob and the Jersey universe of his like first few films, and now he's just making whatever he thinks is funny. And there's definitely some things, I don't know if you want to say wrong, but definitely things that I didn't love about Tusk, but I also really liked it. I mean, I've only seen it once, but
the problem with Tusk, and I think Red State, and I bet you the same thing with Yoga Hoses, is when I watch that film and I think about it, and I think I've pretty much confirmed it by what he talks about in his podcast, is he just never writes a second draft of his script. He literally does the vomit draft where he puts it all on paper and he's like, oh, this is a funny idea, but he never actually develops that idea and refines it until it's the best it can be.
Yeah, I can see that. And
there's some like great ideas in all those films, and it feels like he just threw them up there, but never tried to craft it to be something amazing. Like I feel Red State could have been a great movie, but it just felt like he was just throwing ideas at the screen, and there was no attempt to actually carve something interesting.
Yeah, I think Red State had the potential to be a lot more powerful.
Yeah,
but it kind of just ended. And didn't really have the payoff that you kind of wanted it to have.
Even I thought the way it just ended was kind of creative as well, but because you hadn't built a proper crescendo yet, it just didn't feel as deserving as it could have been.
I mean, if it wasn't for John Goodman, and if it also wasn't for Michael Parks, then there would probably be not much reason to watch that movie.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, the thing is, he knows that his movies, just by his name alone, will make $3 million. So as long as he doesn't spend more than $3 million, making, or whatever the number is, it's probably higher than that. He can make whatever he wants with complete creative freedom. But that also doesn't mean he should only write one draft of the script. And I know that because I look at my first drafts and I'm like, oh yeah, I've got all of my things there, but I haven't actually, it's just, I put all the mixture, the batter there, but it's not actually got a mold to it that's actually going to cook and turned out in the right shape.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And sometimes you're tempted, you get to, sometimes I'm like, I just want to write something, just make it, and I don't have to worry about rewriting. And it's not about heavily, I don't expect people to actually, take a blank page and just rewrite it from scratch, which I know some people are like, yeah, that's what you should do for the second draft. You shouldn't just edit it and around and stuff like that. But sometimes you have to look at the scene and that sequence and how do we make this really cool? Which is what Tarantino does. He's the opposite. He crafts all these scenes that are so perfect, but it doesn't feel like it's actually adding up to anything. Like Inglourious Basterds has like 6 great short films, amazing short films. But what does it mean at the end? I just don't care about any of the characters really. Like,
yeah, I just rewatched that the other day, and it was the first time I watched it in ages. And I love the opening sequence, like that whole Once Upon a Time in the West thing. Like, that was great. And I remember the first time I watched it, I was like, I love this movie. But it never kind of got any better than that for me. I don't think. Even though, like, the whole film has got good bits.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what made you think of Kevin Smith?
Just because of in terms of going against the
doing
mold.
what he wants. He doesn't care about the rules anymore. Yeah.
But from what you say about the drafting thing, like, it kind of makes a lot of sense because it does seem at the moment that he works just very much in isolation.
Yeah.
Whereas previously he would have been involved, like he was making movies with Miramax or whoever. He would have had, development executives and other people, putting input and stuff like that. Like, he would have had more kind of creative people around him to help with stuff.
Yeah. You were. I know you do keep up with the, what's happening in the screenwriting world. Like, I think you listen to the Script Notes, podcast and stuff like that. And I remember you emailed me once about a script and said, "Hey, do you use Korea Prime in that?"
Yeah. Well, so this is also a problem for me and getting things done is because I'm also a huge nerd, and I end up getting really bogged down in the tools rather than actually just doing the thing. Like, you can write a screenplay however you want. You can just write it on paper. You can just write it in Notepad if you want, or whatever text editor. But I end up thinking about what other screenwriting software is out there, or what other things, and that can be a problem.
I think that's always going to be the way, because writing is, I think, one of the hardest things to do, because there's no shortcuts to it. You have to put 100% of your mind in. Like, my day job as a courier, I can put in headphones and do that job by listening to other podcasts and stuff like that. And I actually find it helps my job because I'm listening to other people talk. I'm not daydreaming as much. So I find that sometimes when I've got nothing to listen to, I actually make more mistakes because I'm just just sitting in a car rolling along. You're just prone to daydream all the time. But with writing, you can't do that. And I can't even listen to music with lyrics into it when I'm writing. I can listen to music without lyrics with that one song on repeat and listening to that song. So it's almost like a
drone.
A drone, yeah. To distract your mind from the outside world so you don't distract. But at the end of the day, you've got to get the words down on paper because you're creating a whole world. Like, there's nothing else quite like, no other job I quite like it, because everything else, even in screenwriting, where there's a lot of rules, and at the end of the day, it's just a blank piece of paper, so it's pure creation. There's no, my friend is a great comic book writer, so if he doesn't feel like writing stuff, there's so much other stuff to do. There's, you've got to sketch out the actual pictures, you're doing colouring, you're doing the line work, you're framing out the thing, so there's always something to switch over. But the writing, there's nothing, to switch over to. You just got to sit down and go actually create an entire world with words that don't exist until you think of them.
Do you do stuff like, Like, do you write an outline or anything like that? Do you do like character bios or anything like that before you actually start writing, or do you just actually start writing?
I usually, the first act, I have an idea, and then you stop. Like, I have like 20 feature films where I've written the first act, but I've never got to them. The main thing that stops me from getting the second act done, because I usually have the end of the film as well, is the hardest thing for me to do is having the characters. Because you've got to make interesting characters in the second act, because that's the only thing that makes people want to keep reading.
Yeah.
And it's hard to create interesting characters all the time. What I'm currently doing is trying to write all the things I want to write, all the different things I want to write, and in the same universe, so I can reuse the character if I need to. Like if I'm stuck.
I like that idea. And I had an idea for a series of short films once, like about a guy, and it was all going to be connected. And then at some point, someone had done something else which was kind of similar, and then another thing that was kind of similar, and then it just kind of doesn't make any sense anymore. And then the other problem I have is sometimes I'll start writing a thing, like I'll have the idea and I'm like, yeah, this is interesting, and I'll write like the first cool opening scene that I thought of, maybe get a few 10, 20 pages in, and then I'll get to a point where I'm like, this is actually not that interesting, or like it's nothing new that anyone's going to be like, oh wow, that's a cool new thing. It's like, so I guess that's a kind of probably a self-confidence issue as much as anything else, as much as it is a writing issue, because it could be more than that if you just get it out and then go fix it, or make it better. So but I tend to just start writing and then revise until I'm either to a point or sick of it, and just leave it.
I think that's sometimes I think you have to write a really bad second draft. A bad second act in your first draft, and just get through it, get to the end, so you can go, oh, okay, finally, there's 100 pages here that technically tells a story. I know the second act is rubbish, but now I can go back and go, oh, what's some interesting things that I think the audience would want to see, and rewrite the second act. But just getting through that thing is such a gives you a second wind, I think.
Yeah, that's a struggle.
Yeah. But are you thinking of focusing on writing feature films and pushing yourself as a writer, or are you thinking of writing short films and making them?
I'm probably more interested in writing feature films, but because I've not really made anything for a while, I probably want to make a couple of shorts, just for practice, as much as anything.
I try to make a short film every year, but I hate short films, so it's such a struggle. I just don't like them as a medium at all.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, because I feel like they used to be something to aspire to, and there was more of I think you got a lot more respect for a short film, because it wasn't so easy to make one. Yeah. You had to find the money, or, find the camera or whatever. Yeah. Whereas now, because of YouTube and everything, like everything is a short film. And it's so rare to see a really good one. I think now. Like, I remember going to, like, when I was at uni, obviously when you're at uni, like, everyone's making short films, that's part of your assignments. Yeah. And some people make good ones and some people make pretty bad ones. But, I would always go to, like, you'd be watching the short films whenever they were on TV, like the SBS used to have that SOS thing where they would have random shorts, or you would go
Eat
to
Carpet, I think, was it called?
Eat Carpet. Yeah, that was the earlier one. That was a good source.
That was probably back in the 90s.
Yeah, that was a good source of weird short films. Yeah. But yeah, at some point that kind of went away, or that just maybe the quality dropped.
So what are you using to write at the moment? You're flitting between different
So my
systems?
current solution is a text editor called Sublime Text, which is just a text editor like you would use for writing like code or anything you want, just plain text. And there's a syntax highlighting package for that add-on, which gives you the fountain highlighting, like the fountain screenwriting format highlighting in it. So you just write in plain text.
Sublime Text, people use that for like coding apps, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
is that how you came across it? Were you coding something or?
I actually came across it from a Linux podcast that I was listening to. So that's a nerd thing. Because I use Linux because I'm a nerd. And one of the hosts of the podcast said, this is what I use to write. He's a journalist. He was like, this is what I write all my stuff in, and it's great for everything. And then I looked it up, and I actually bought it. Like, I don't buy much software because I use Linux and most things are free. But it was just so good. Like, you can download a free version that you can use, and the only limitation in the free version is that every 5 times you press save, it'll pop up a box and say, do you want to buy it yet?
Okay, yeah.
And give you a link, and you can go, remind me later, or yes. So because I've got like a weird tick where I have to save like after every 2 words that I type, like I got pretty sick of that, so I actually bought the thing. But you can use it works on Linux, Mac, and Windows, so it's good to run everywhere.
Yeah.
And I only committed to buying it after I found Fountain. So before that, I didn't know. I wasn't using Fountain at all. I was using Celtex. Did you ever use that?
Yeah. I know a couple of people tried to make me use it, but I've never liked it.
I really liked it at first, but I think the only reason I liked it is because it was cross-platform, because I just probably got into Linux and it was working on Linux, and you would work on Mac and it would work on Windows, and you could share the files around and whatnot. Also, it was free. But at some point, they just kept cramming more crap into it. Like, they had the index card thing, and they had the scratchpad thing, and then they had storyboards and production schedule and all this stuff that you don't actually need at all. And if you do want to do those things, there's probably better software
to do it.
So I stopped using that. And then, once I found out about Fountain, then Sublime kind of made sense. The only problem that you face there is because you're just writing in plain text and you've got a plain text Fountain file, you've got to get some way to turn it into a PDF. Which there's lots of things that do, but there's a few things that do it better than others. So there's like a couple of different web pages where you just drop your file on and it formats into a PDF for you, and then you just download it. And some of them are pretty good, some of them are a bit average.
I think the only time I've used Fountain, I was able to just get a Chrome extension and I was just writing in Google Docs.
Oh, yeah.
And you could quickly switch between Fountain and the formatted version, which was quite cool. When I did this collaborative project, I tried to convince everyone to do that because it's just so much easier in Google Docs, because they want to use Celtex, but because I think Celtex does have some collaborative features, but it's just not as good as simple as Google Docs. You never have conflict issues in Google Docs.
I thought that they made you pay for all that extra stuff, like the.
That's the only reason some people didn't want to pay for it.
Yeah.
So it was just a mess. Where I'm like, Google Docs is free. Just type in Fountain and use this extension to format it, because I know they want it to look good. Some of them do. Some people don't even know what a good-looking script is because they don't read other scripts.
Yeah.
It was just chaos rather than.
Yeah.
And what made it worse was one of them was like meant to be sort of a radio play. And there's no real standard for radio play scripts. The BBC has their standard, but they accept any standard. So you can write Celtex's radio play format was different to like Final Draft's radio format, and every app had a different template, and so everyone was handling this stuff and all looked different. And it doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day, it's about making a good story. But it was just annoying that people would argue about what it should look like.
Oh, yeah.
When we should have just been focusing on writing the thing, or we should have just stayed in Fountain and then written at Fountain in text in Google Docs where everyone can collaborate, and then export it. And then if we're submitting it to something and you want to reformat it, then one person who's the final editor, the person in charge, the final head writer, should just go through and format to however they like it.
Yeah, and like you could have imported it into whatever screenwriting software, whether they understood Fountain or not. Pretty much, like if it's plain text,
Yeah.
you can change the extension and put it into anything. I just liked it because it worked everywhere. And
So what's the advantages of Sublime Text over, say, just text edit?
the only thing, the main thing is the syntax highlighting. Like not every text editor has a syntax highlighting thing, so it just makes it nicer to look at.
Yeah, okay.
Sublime Text has like nice color schemes, so it like looks nice when you use it, and you can have like a full screen distraction free mode and stuff. Other stuff it's got is all like the coding features, like if you wanted to, most text editors have similar things.
Like advanced find and replace kind of things.
Stuff like
if you
that.
want to switch the name of a character, it's probably a lot easier to write a script to do that.
I mean, you can do that in most text editors, but you can also do things in Sublime, like there's a keyboard shortcut. If you highlight a word, you can select all that same word on different lines, like in your view, and change them all at once. Yeah, like a multi-edit kind of a thing. Yeah, rather than just a find and replace. Like if you wanted to do more than just a find and replace. Yeah. But there's not necessarily like any like big ticket advantage over any other just plain text editor. It's kind of just what you're comfortable with as well. Like I've tried to write, I have done a bit of Fountain writing in Vim, which is just like a command line text editor. That's for the super nerdy people. And that's got like all those kind of advanced code stuff if you know how to do it. But it's just not as pretty, and it can be a bit clunky after a while.
Yeah, I've always found I listen to a lot of podcasts where do you know Daring Fireball?
No, that one.
It's like a guy who just does commentary on Apple, and he does all his writing in BB Edit.
That's like, I feel like a very old school thing to use.
Yeah, it's like, I guess it's like a pure Mac version of Sublime Text, like.
But even, I guess it's more for BB Code, which was like an old, like I think it's internet thing.
Possibly, but I think it's still just a text editor, like Sublime Text for doing code. Yeah, I think a lot of iOS app developers use it. I don't think Android developers use it, because I think it's maybe even Mac only.
I think it is Mac only. Yeah, like I haven't.
But there's a whole cult around that app.
Yeah,
but
right.
I don't really follow it. But I use my current solution is Scrivener, which I first got because it's sort of designed for novelists, and it just makes you able to break down. You can use it as a simple text editor, but it's just you keep everything in this one project in this document. And it keeps it all in a bundle for you, and you can. But then on top of that, you have a WYSIWYG that's keep all the reference images in a folder, and you keep all your character bios in a folder. Keep all your, have a folder full of log lines.
Oh yeah,
that I've written, and it keeps everything together so you don't lose stuff, which helps over the course of a project when you're just doing it by yourself, because it's not that great for collaboration. There is no collaborative features. They do have Dropbox sync, so you can sync it and then give it to someone else and you open it, but you wouldn't want to work on it at the same time with someone. But it's more for novelists who are just working by themselves. Yeah. And eventually you come down, you can just write it as a big text file, and then you can go hit the compile button. There's like a million options of how to format it post writing the actual thing. But then eventually they added script writing features that were sort of as good as Final Draft in terms of just being able to quickly tab character.
So not that good, or
No, as in, originally why people like Final Draft is you can quickly switch between modes, between writing a scene, header of a scene, action character kind of thing. And that's so you can quickly write stuff and you're seeing it as you do rather than Fountain where you're just writing as text.
Yeah.
But you can actually write in Fountain and reformat it because they support Fountain. But, and it also has, you can just write on a black screen, which is the main thing I do.
Oh yeah, the other thing I just like about Fountain is that because it's just plain text, you'll always be able to open it in anytime.
Yeah,
like I've got stuff from when I first started uni when I was writing in Final Draft.
Yeah,
Final Draft 7.
Yeah,
and they changed the file format since then, so not even Final Draft will open those files anymore.
Yeah,
I don't have Final Draft anymore, anyways. And there's kind of nothing to get those files. You can sort of there's some import in different screenwriting software to try and get it out, but
basically Scrivener is, even if Scrivener died, you can just open the bundle and then you've just got the raw text files.
Oh yeah, that's good. That's
because the app, I think the app does the formatting, but the actual data files are just pure text.
Yeah, that was kind of the same thing with Celtex. When I stopped using that and I wanted to get my files out, a Celtex file is really just a zip file full of stuff. The only crap part is it formats the script in HTML, so if you wanted to get out plain text, you've got to then go rip all the HTML out. So it's easier if you can open it in Celtex and export a plain text file.
So then I use that, and then that Final Draft Scrivener can export out to anything, so you can export out as FDX and you can open it as in any software that, because quite often what I do is, because Final Draft is accidentally the standard, I find it also uses less pages than Scrivener. So if I'm like, this is starting to look like I'm getting up to 115 pages, I want to look shorter, I will just export it out, open in Final Draft, and then export it out as a PDF from there, and it's suddenly 107 pages, so it looks like it's under 110, even though it's the same content.
Interesting. There must be a spacing thing somewhere in Scrivener's PDFing.
I find it's different every app because I've got 5 different apps. I open it in each one, and they all have a different page count.
Yeah, that's weird.
So I don't know, but since Final Draft is kind of standard, I'm like, I can cheat by just using the standard, but I only do that when I'm actually about to send it
to someone who's going to open it in Final Draft or something.
And actually cares about, or they'll look at the page count before they actually start reading the actual script. Another cool software is I don't really use, but is writerduet.com. It's a web app, and it has this cool feature where it actually looks for ways to make your script shorter by not actually changing the text. It looks for this is you've literally only got one word in this line, so if you change the spacing on this one line, it'll bring up the whole document by 2 pages, and I find that handy for getting the script down.
Yeah, that's good.
So it psychologically looks shorter.
Yeah.
To the reader. And I think that I don't know if you can do that. That they have a really extensive free version, but you have to work in a web app. But I think I paid for the pro version when it was in beta, so I have grandfathered in for updates. So I don't know if it's still worth it for paying for that. It's hard to recommend someone use it. I guess newbies who don't know how to, it's better than typing in Word.
Yeah, back in the day when I was first at uni, they didn't start us in Final Draft, like in the first short film screenwriting unit. For some reason, they gave us a Word macro to use instead.
Yeah. I used to do that.
Which was called, I can't remember what it was called. It wasn't very good.
No.
You kind of had to do a lot of work to get good formatting out of it. But they didn't care really there. They just wanted it to look vaguely like a screenplay.
Yeah. So what's next for you? What's 2017 for Craig looking at?
That's a good question, because I don't really know.
What is your day job?
My day job is I'd work IT support
Okay.
for like an engineering company, and that's
So you're
sort of-
working in Sublime Text at work?
no, I do nothing fun at work. I do
Okay.
like I wish I was doing like writing
Code
or
stuff.
something, but I'm doing like installing software for people and setting up
Yeah.
computers when new people start, or
Mm-hmm.
backing up stuff when people leave, and like pretty like level 1, 2 kind
Mhm.
of IT support. So it's not that interesting. So I'm hoping that like more opportunity comes up there so that it's more fun. But the problem with it is it's not just the kind of job where you can switch off.
Yeah.
So like when you come home and you feel like you're supposed to be doing something that you actually want to do, like work on a screenplay,
Mm.
your mind is kind of dead, and you've
Yeah.
got to work your way back up into
Yeah.
it or recharge somehow. So it's very easy to procrastinate like that. It's really easy to be like, oh no, I'm too tired, or oh no, I just
Yeah.
won't do that.
Good to do it in the morning. Gotta get up early.
I have tried that. I'm not really a morning person. It worked for a couple of days.
As you get older, you become a morning
Yeah,
person.
I might try that again. I've tried a few different things over the last probably year. So that was one of the more recent ones where I'd set like a 5:30 alarm and say like do an hour or whatever, do it like an hour and a half or an hour of writing something. But yeah, I kind of found that I couldn't really keep it up because I would end up getting too tired, or I would stay up late and then I'd just be foggy in the morning.
Yeah.
The other thing I tried, which was something that I've heard lots of different writers say, which is they would get up in the morning and write morning pages. Have you heard of that? Where
No.
you're just supposed to get and just start writing like stream of consciousness, like just write a page of random whatever comes out,
Yeah.
and it's supposed to get your mind going, kickstart your creativity or whatever, so then you can just start writing, which is a good idea, but didn't really work for me. Maybe it's just because I'm undisciplined and lazy and stupid. Maybe that's why.
Yeah. It's hard. I don't think it's like, I mean, unless you're taking Adderall or something and or Dexies, it's pretty hard to write no matter, even I think the most prolific writers, I think a lot of the most prolific, like people, journalists have to write every day. It's kind of easy for them because they're just following a format. They just, that's why robots are taking their job. Have you heard about all these robots that are writing sports articles? Because it's just like they can take the data from the stats of this thing and literally just write the article for them because it's just following the rules.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
And there's no thirst for quality journalism. It's a very niche thing, so no one cares. And I'm partly to blame. I just don't trust journalism anymore because just the internet age. Why would I want to read an article about what Elon Musk is doing when you can actually watch the interview with him on YouTube and actually hear his voice, so it doesn't get distorted by a middleman? You can go straight to the source.
Yeah.
If I want to hear about what a screenwriter's thoughts are on filmmaking, I can go to his podcast or his blog and just read straight from the source rather than having some weird person in the middle just translating it for no reason.
Yeah, I do find that a fair bit. It's even worse. It's like the worst with news stuff, where everybody's got their own agenda, or they just pull out the clickbait.
Yeah.
And then actually, if you then go and read the original story, the clickbait thing is hardly even there, or it's out of context, makes no sense.
Everyone's complaining about the fake news that helped change this election.
Oh, yeah.
The thing is, the solution to this is not trying to ban all this fake news and stuff, is just tell people to not trust non-first party sources. You've got to go straight to the source on everything. And if that first party source is not publishing anything because they're all lying about stuff, you should be suspicious about them.
Yeah.
If you go and ask the Liberal Party why they're getting funding this mine and ask them to publish this, they won't tell you because it's dodgy business. There's nothing good about that, because if they were actually had nothing to hide, they would just publish the data and say, look, we need this X amount of jobs in this region over this time, and this is better, then screwing up the environment is going to be worthwhile for the economy. They don't have that data. It's just because someone said, hey, we'll keep funding your party for the next few elections if you push this mine through.
Yeah. But it's just the... it's funny, I was just listening to a podcast this afternoon where they were talking about this. Because of the outrage culture, people are just so... They just jump on the story.
Yeah.
And it just kind of goes...
Yeah. That's why I'm a big fan of podcasts, because even, yes, you can edit a podcast to take it out of context, but anyone who's complaining can go and listen to the original. And there doesn't seem to be as much outrage around podcasts than there is about a blog post, because once you hear the nuance of the way they say it, it's harder to take it out of context.
Yeah.
Rather than you could write something on your blog or on a tweet that could be interpreted as being offensive, but if you actually heard or saw them saying it, you wouldn't find that offensive at all, because there was a genuine interest rather than an ignorance, or there was a sarcasm that you don't pick up, whatever it is.
Part of that is probably also because for a podcast you actually have to listen to the thing to actually to get it out, whereas a blog post you can skim, you can skip a whole paragraph.
I literally go to an article and I have my own biases of what this article should be about, and I go Control F or Command F and search for that word. If that word's not in it, I pretty much just go, this article is not going to have a valid opinion.
Well, that's better than just reading the headline and sharing it again on Facebook, because you think that's an outrage, that headline. People need to know, without actually reading the thing.
Sometimes I joke about that stuff. Like, I see this headline and I just make a comment about it, and people are like, oh, I heard that this person is doing this. And I'm surprised that people don't get my sarcasm. They actually go, oh, really?
Yeah.
They get the clickbait when I'm just being sarcastic because I know it's clickbait, but they don't get that. Anyway.
Yeah.
This is our future economy. Just go to the source, guys. You don't need a journalist that is paid by the click, not by the quality of the work.
Or in the case of some of the most popular online places where they're not paid at all, really. Yeah. They're paid in exposure.
Exposure, yes.
Yeah.
Exposure is a funny thing, because you really, really want it, and then at some point you decide, no, I don't want it, and I'm going to sue anyone that tries to take my work for free.
Yeah,
it's this funny blurred line in the middle where it's like, yes, like musicians, they're sending out free CDs to everyone. Take it, please, spread it. And then sometimes they actually get the record contract, and now it's like, nope. Sharing it now is stealing. Take it out off that website. I always hear there's this famous big comedian. He's big in certain groups. Russell, he's like a Canadian, but he's got an Indian ethnic heritage, so he gets...
Oh, Russell Peters.
Russell Peters, yes.
Yeah.
There's literally... He appeared on the Joe Rogan podcast. He talked about how they asked him, well, how did he become so big? Like, he's the highest... People listening to this probably haven't heard of him, but he's probably the highest grossing comedian in the world, because he sells to all these markets that white people don't care about. They ask him, how did he get so big? And it's like, oh, because this guy just took a part of some of my clips and put them on YouTube, and it's become huge, and suddenly I started selling out things. And then, like, an hour later into the podcast, he's complaining about people pirating his DVDs. I'm like, that's exactly the same thing.
It's like Jim Jeffries, the Australian comedian, got famous off someone put a clip of him getting punched in the face.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he had like a comedy special.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously he's been working for a long time, and maybe it was just like a perfect storm of exposure, plus he was working long enough that people,
Have you heard Jim Jeffries' most latest special on Netflix?
Freedom, that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched that one.
Which is now terribly dated because Donald Trump won.
Yeah, no, same as David Cross's Make America Great Again. It was all like making fun of the fact that Donald Trump was running, and then it actually happened.
Yeah.
So,
but there's a great moment when he was like, I kind of want to see what happens.
Yeah.
It's kind of tempting to see what happens under Trump.
Yeah.
Exciting times, 2017. We could be all dead this time next year.
Yeah, it's
Trump will start some beef on Twitter and press the button.
Yeah. Are you a South Park watcher?
No.
They're they're keeping up with it. Like they're in line because they have they have a really short production cycle.
Oh, yeah.
Like they make like an episode a week or whatever. And so I think they took a week off straight after the election because they weren't ready for it. I don't know how they planned for it because they have this kind of parallel story going along with the US elections where Hillary Clinton was going against Mr. Garrison as Donald Trump, basically. Yeah. And then now he's the president. And so, yeah, they've just elected him president, and it's kind of going along.
I heard they had to rewrite it because they had just assumed that Hillary would win.
Well, yeah, maybe they did. I didn't actually... That might be why they had the week off.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so... It's better than watching the actual news anyways.
Okay.
Because the actual news will depress you.
Yeah.
Whereas at least... Yeah.
Awesome. I'll have to check that out. Do you have any recommendations? What's some good films you've seen recently? Do you have any recs?
Oh, shit. It's funny because when we met outside, I was saying that I don't really feel like I'm keeping up with stuff. The last new things or just anything?
Anything that you've seen that's like, oh, that kept me inspired to keep doing stuff rather than defeating you going, oh, this is so dumb. Like, no offense if you like Marvel things, but I watched the most recent Captain America film and I was just like...
Yeah, I watched that. It was...
I don't get it. I don't understand why this is so popular.
I think... I don't understand why it's so popular for the mass market. Like, I guess because it's just an action film or whatever, but like it kind of made sense when there was comic book movies and only people who liked comic books liked them. Like when X-Men came out, it was more popular than just the comic book people, but mostly like I loved it because I watched X-Men as a cartoon as a kid, and I was like, oh yeah, this is cool. It's like the cartoon characters, but in real life.
Yeah.
And they tried to make it like gritty and realistic and whatnot. But at some point they're just like, nah, now we can do anything in a comic book movie. We can make it exactly like a comic book.
Yeah.
And sometimes you get Sin City and then sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
Which, Sin City has its own problems, but I think we've hit this direct quote from another podcast. We've hit peak Marvel, where I think a lot of people have had enough.
Yeah.
But they're not going to stop. Because
I think it's because the China, even though we're sick of it, China's just getting interested in it.
It's the China.
And they make so much money there that it's like, we really should just be making this in Chinese language and then dubbing it into English. But we might as well try and get 2 hits with the one stone.
Yeah. That's a tough one because like people, they've still got good people creating these things, but it's just that they sort of create them in such a way that they're trying to appeal to everybody, and they sort of appeal to everybody a little bit.
I was just so I remember walking out The Dark Knight, was so excited for films. Like, this is going to change everything. And literally, that was like the last superhero sort of film that tried to be a real film, that had that movie magic film rather than just Robert Downey Jr. being charismatic and a couple of punches on the screen and the end.
Yeah, I think like Iron Man was cool when it first came out because it was different from The Dark Knight. Like it was like, oh, this is kind of lighthearted, and he's like kind of drunk and funny, and like it's a good morality tale. It's like
but I don't know. If you think back to that movie, all I remember is how sort of funny and cool Tony Stark was. I couldn't even tell you who the baddie was. I couldn't tell you like what were the stakes other than him dying. That he could die, even though he's not going to. Rather than you think back to The Dark Knight and you go, oh wow, the Joker was this badass villain.
That's a good point actually, because that was one of my big problems with Ant-Man, was that the Paul Rudd character was just, he was too cool to be believable.
Yeah.
Like, it felt like Paul Rudd had rewritten the script and given himself all the best jokes.
Oh, right. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Did you see that?
I did watch it, and I I can't remember what it was. It's that forgettable.
Like, and that was
I was really excited about it because I love, you know, from the original Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. I love when people get
but there
shrunk.
was barely any of that.
Yeah.
I was excited for it initially because Edgar Wright was going to direct it, and I like him, and I've like been a fan since Spaced or whatever.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, this will be cool. This will be like an interesting Marvel movie, you know, like it'll take it somewhere new. And then creative differences, and he was off the project, and then it kind of, I don't know how much of his legacy is still in the movie, his vision, whatever, but it felt like he left, and then Paul Rudd gave himself all the best jokes, and that was kind of it.
I'm really interested to see next week the new Star Wars films coming out. Rogue One,
a Star Wars story, yeah.
And I was pretty excited about this movie, but I'm really, because it's Gareth Edwards, I think, who's directing it. But I would be really interested to see. But the big controversy is like apparently 40% of it has been rewritten, reshot by Tony Gilroy, who's a pretty cool director in his own writer-director.
Who's Tony Gilroy? What I know his work.
State of Play with Rachel McAdams and Russell Crowe and Michael, what's his name, with George Clooney?
Oh, Michael Clayton.
Clayton.
I don't think I've seen either of those films.
All right, they're pretty cool, those two films. Michael Clayton's really cool, I think. I really like that film. So, anyway, the fact that another director's had to come in and probably compromise the original vision of Gareth Edwards, I reckon some people are like, oh no, it's going to make it better, but I reckon because it's Disney, they saw that it was not going to be as
action-packed or something.
Yeah, or just not as bland as, you know, The Force Awakens was probably the most bland movie I've ever had. Like, it was literally like eating pizza with not even tomato paste or cheese on it. You couldn't have made a more boring movie if you've tried, I don't think.
That's funny, because I really liked Force Awakens while I was watching it, and then it wasn't until afterwards...
When you rewatched it on the small screen?
I rewatched it on the small screen probably, and I was like, oh... And like, yeah, because I watched it in the cinema. That's like, very rarely go to the cinema these days, but I went and I watched it. And it had a lot of impact, and then I watched it again, and it didn't... I have a lot of issues with Star Wars anyways, mostly because my favourite thing about Star Wars is nothing to do with any of the content of the actual films.
Oh, right.
Like, I really like the universe and the mythology of it.
Yeah.
But so much of the stuff in the films is pretty...
Well, The Force Awakens didn't add anything to it. It was like... I rewatched the prequels after coming home from The Force Awakens, and I was more excited about them, as dated as they are, from the CGI and the stale acting and stuff like that. They're just more interesting. They're going into more interesting worlds. They're going on adventures. And I guess because you knew it was gonna be a tragedy, it felt like it had more stakes. But the Force Awakens was just like, oh, let's go to another sand planet that's just like Tatooine, but we'll give it another name. Yeah. And it's like, oh, we'll have another Death Star. But this one will make even less sense because it's just like, oh, we secretly built this Death Star into a planet that's in the solar system as all these other planets, and somehow those other planets didn't notice, and we'll destroy them all with one hit. And there's this new force that's like the Nazis that doesn't have any context as to how they came about, which they didn't have in the original film because you're sort of entering a world which had nothing. So you're going, the cool thing about the original episode 4 was like you go into a world and it's just setting up, and it was basic. And they tried to do it at this, but you can't do that because it just, all they're doing is resetting everything that was accomplished in those 3 films in the original trilogy.
And also,
it's like that those trilogy meant nothing because it's just like, oh, the Empire's back, but in a different format, and they're way more powerful, even though they don't have nowhere near the resources of the old Empire.
The thing that bothered me the most was there's the people who are fighting the First Order who are called the Resistance. Yeah. But they're not the Resistance. They're
the Empire now.
No, well, they're the Republic, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a Republic army somewhere which we never see. Because
Princess Leia would have the resources of the entire New Republic.
Yeah, she should be.
And she has this small force.
Yeah, that made no sense. Like, you're not the resistance. You're the army.
Yeah. They're the resistance.
Yeah, the first order of the resistance.
Yeah.
They should be. Yeah, they're the new rebels.
It was just such. It was literally, you can tell they just. I mean, it is technically fan fiction because George Lucas didn't have anything to do with it, but it felt like fan fiction. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It felt like, oh yeah, we're gonna have the X-wings back. The same ones are not really that different, and we'll have your old characters back, but Princess Leia will just put her in a room and she just shouts and she doesn't do anything. I think I was really interested in the Rey character, but it was like, oh, we don't really trust to have a female lead, so we've got to have this black guy in him, and they're going to be buddy. It's going to be a buddy cops story with the girl and the black guy, which is, here's the idea of a guy, stormtrooper rebelling is a really interesting idea, but I feel like that should be a separate story, like Rogue One. It almost felt like it almost felt like he was more the main character than her, because I'm pretty sure he turns up in the film before her, right?
Yeah, because it starts off on the, with Poe Dameron coming to get this map piece, whatever, off the old dude, and that's where we meet Finn there.
It just felt like it was, it's a two-hander, which I just don't think is suitable for the main line trilogy.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what the next one is like. I was so ripped off by the Luke Skywalker involvement, just because it just felt like that's it. Like this whole movie we're building up to, where's Luke? And
I thought it was so sexist that Han Solo they made Han Solo sort of the master of Rey, like she's looking up to him. Rather than, you'd think that Leia they sort of alluded at the end of Return of the Jedi that Leia will be trained in the Force now, like she's a Jedi as well. Like, oh, there is another. You'd think that if this girl turned out with Force powers, Leia would take her in and train her. That would have been a way better movie. This is my argument, is that you have this Rey character. She has the powers, but she doesn't know what it's about because the Jedi have been wiped from existence, except for Luke, who's just a legend because he's out of touch with everyone.
Yeah.
And they have Leia, who has to sort of train her and become her thing, her master kind of thing, even though Leia's probably not that powerful Jedi, but she wants to get her to Luke so she can finish her training under Luke.
That could have been a more interesting idea.
And then you wouldn't have had Leia just standing in a control booth going, okay, we'll attack the Death Star.
In that kind of version of it, Leia would have been Ben Kenobi, and then Luke would have been Yoda.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Whereas
rather than Han Solo was Ben Kenobi.
Yeah.
Which didn't really...
And he totally was, because he died and all.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
Sorry.
Oh, it doesn't. I think that everyone knows by now.
Yeah. Oh, well. I better wrap up. We can go for ages now.
Okay.
Thanks for tuning in, Craig. What do you want to plug? How do people find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter at KERA7GE, which is just Craig with the silent 7 in it.
Okay. I'll put that in the show notes.
Yeah, you can put that in the show notes. There's a YouTube channel out there which has some of my student films on it, which probably no one wants to see. So I wouldn't probably direct people there.
All right. But it might have your next film in the future, though.
It might have something.
Yeah.
It might have something.
Okay. I'll put that in the show notes if you send it to me as well.
Okay.
Thanks for coming on, Craig. It's been fun chatting.
Thanks. Yeah,
geeking out on just film stuff.
Yeah, it was good.
All right. Bye.
Okay. Thanks.